Hello,
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have Evan Leybourn, the founder and CEO of Business Agility Institute with us today, talking about management. You are doing it wrong. So are you ready to start your speech?
I am indeed, yes. Let's do this.
Great. I'm so anxious for your certainly amazing presentation. So we'll have 25 minutes of presentation, just some requests from the audience to make some questions by chat, and we can choose some ones for the 5 minutes Q&A. Okay? The audience is yours.
All right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you happen to be. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Evan Leybourn. I am based out of Melbourne, Australia, which is currently quite warm, heading out of summer, but it's actually been quite a cool summer, to be honest. But for the next 25 minutes, I'm going to be talking a little bit about what it means to be a manager in a modern organization. Very specifically, what it means to be a manager in an organization, in an agile organization. And I'm going to be telling you a story, and partly because I believe that we learn best through stories, but also because, well, I have a story to tell. I'm going to share with you the story of a bad manager. And I'm going to tell you the story for the one person who cannot possibly object, and that's my story. So before we talk about what management looks like in 2021, let's go back and share a little bit about the kind of things we want to avoid. So I want to go back now to 2008. 2008 was the year I first became an executive. This was the year I was promoted. I was a public servant. I was working for the Australian government. And I was promoted to a level where I was responsible for a very large budget. I was responsible for a whole of government program. And I was responsible for multiple teams. This is a far cry from being a team leader or I'd been a small business owner. I'd had like 15 staff, but being able to change and lead an organization, like an entire division, is an entire skill set that I had never had before. So how did I get the job? Right? I got the job because I knew what needed to be done to get the work done. I knew the domain, I knew the industry. I was an expert in that industry. I'd been a manager before, but most importantly, or most accurately, I got the job because I was confident, because I thought I could do the job. And this confidence is a huge problem with managers in the world today. Not that confidence is a bad thing, confidence is a very good thing, but a confidence that is lacking skill. Because here is the sad truth. Most of us, many of us, and I think many of you listening now, probably think that you would make a great manager. You would think that you could do a better job than your boss. And most of you probably aren't thinking about the kind of education or the kind of skills that you need to develop to be a manager. Because we look at a doctor, we look at a nurse or an engineer, or even a laborer, and we don't think we can do that job without training. We look at it and go, I can do that job, but I'm going to have to go through education, university. I'm going to have to learn how to do that job. We don't think that with our boss. When we look at management, we assume that because I know this, We assume that I can be a good manager. And this was my assumption. I assumed that management, leadership, was just the skills that I had at another level. Whereas the truth is, it is an entirely different set of skills. And that is something that we don't teach. There was a survey by Career Builder a couple of years ago that said something like 71% of managers do not get any training, any education when they become managers. There is no professional development put on in terms of the skills of management. And in my case, this was certainly true. I joined the organization and there was this assumption that I knew how to be a good executive, a good manager. Whereas the truth is, I really didn't, because the skills were different. I didn't know how to delegate to that level. I didn't know how to align expectations across multiple teams and divisions. I didn't know how to create consensus across different other managers and leaders. I didn't know any of the things that were necessary in order to create and be a leader, let alone an agile leader, because that's another set of skills. Which I mentioned delegation. If you're an agile leader, the skill of delegation is so fundamentally important. You have to create teams that have autonomy, that have a sense of purpose. And you do that through delegating outcomes, not delegating outputs, not delegating work, but delegating the actual outcome of what you're trying to achieve. This kind of, how do I put it? These challenges, this lack of education hurt me. So let's go back to 2008 for a moment. What happened? It took a manager, a leader above me, my boss, to point out my arrogance, to point out those assumptions. Now, I was lucky. I was lucky because I had someone who would point this out to me, who would share with me and coach me into being a better leader. But I wasn't receptive straight away. And so think about your own experiences, your own, the managers around you, and in fact, even yourself. Quite often what happens is we feel attacked. This feedback of, like, we think we're doing a good job, but we're not. And so unless you're receptive, unless you're open to go, actually, you're missing some very fundamental skills that if you don't have them, you will not be successful. You will not be effective as a manager. And it took me a while to be receptive to that feedback. Now, in my case, I was lucky. I had a manager who would help me through this. In your cases, I don't know. All right? Think about the skills and think about the managers above you. Are they good? Are they effective at their jobs? Are they good at their jobs? And if they're not, right, then the question you have to ask yourself is, well, why not? There's a concept called the Peta Principle, which is to be promoted to your level of incompetence. Now, that was me in 2008. Right? I was promoted to that point at which I was ineffective. Right? Now, I realized that and got to change, but many managers, many people don't. So I want you to think about the people around you and the managers who you work with. Do you feel like they have reached the level of incompetence? Do you feel like they are ineffective in the roles that they are? And the question isn't, or rather shouldn't be, like, how do we get rid of them, or how can I get that job because I can do a better job? Right? The question is, what do we need to do to help them be better, help them be more effective in the role that they do have? And you don't have to be their boss. You could report to them, because feedback goes both ways. Right? You give feedback to your boss just as much as they will give feedback to you. And you will observe areas where you're not given ownership, you're not given accountability. And these performance points are vital for the development. Now, obviously, they have to be receptive. And there's a saying in English: change your organization or change your organization. Right? I don't know how that's going to translate. But what that basically means is, if you cannot change, make better the people who are around you, right? The systems, the leaders who are around you, then you need to move on, change your organization and go somewhere else. So let's come out of the story for a second and let's talk about what good looks like, what good agile management looks like. Now, I've touched on a couple of these skills, but I'm going to give you 5 key skills here. Skill number 1, right? Delegation. Now, I touched on that. Delegating outcomes, not outputs. This is a fundamental skill that we don't teach, or at least we don't teach enough of. This isn't, I need this report by Friday, right? But this is to enable, to give ownership of a business result to an individual or to a team, and to hold them to account for that. But that then leads to the second skill, which is developing ownership. So you cannot delegate to someone who doesn't have the skill to be delegated to, who doesn't have the ability or the confidence to actually take ownership. So as a leader, one of the skills that you need is to develop people, not to develop the core skills, not to develop their skill of like software development or marketing, whatever their job function is, but to develop their whole self, right? And a big part of that is building them up so that they have the confidence to take ownership of an outcome. Right? And so as a leader, if you can't develop your people to be better at being people, then you're missing out on, well, a huge amount of benefits and capabilities that you would otherwise have. Number 3, right, vision, or more accurately, communicating vision. So when we look at how an agile organization operates, when we look at how leaders in agile organizations can be most effective, it happens because they get alignment of all the parts of the organization aligned in one direction. And that alignment comes from a common vision, a common mission, common goals. And if you as a leader do not have the skills to create that alignment, to create that common vision, then, well, again, you're missing out on huge amounts of benefits, because your organization will tear itself apart, competing with each other as opposed to collaborating with each other. Number 4, right? Strategy, or more accurately, strategic agility. Very important in COVID times. This ability to create a feedback loop in the marketplace, to create an emergent strategy, one that evolves over time, because things change, circumstances change. Now, if you don't have that the skill of creating an emergent strategy, then as a leader, as a manager, you're missing out again on the benefits of agility. And the last key skill, and there are a lot more than 5, but I don't have all the time in the world, so I'm just going to give you 5. The last key skill that a manager needs is, and I'm going to go back to what I said before, confidence, but confidence tempered with competence, tempered with empathy. These 3 things. So confidence, you need to believe you can do the job. Right? Competence, you need to actually be able to do the job. And empathy, you need to do so with other people, not just for yourself. Right? And a manager who is competent and empathic, but without confidence, who doesn't believe in themselves, is ineffective, is untrustworthy, or more accurately, it's hard to trust them. Conversely, a manager like I was, who had confidence but not competence, is a fraud, is incapable of doing that job. Now, you can learn, and this is my final point, right? A manager, you as a manager, or the people around you as managers, if you're looking to become a manager, right? These are all skills. Being a manager has got nothing to do with how good you are at your job. Right? If you're a great senior software engineer or a great marketing campaign lead, you do not need to you do not need to develop those skills. Though developing those skills further is not what you need to be a good manager. It's developing the management skills that is completely independent of those functional capability skills. And that's what I never learned, at least until I had a manager who showed me the way. I had a manager who believed that I could develop these skills and invested in me so that I did. And you, and we'll go to questions in a second, but in your management journey, whether it's in the future or where you are now, think about those 5 skills I spoke about, as well as many others that there may be, and ask yourself, do you have the right skills? And how can you develop them further? So I want to take a moment, first of all, to apologize for the delay. This is definitely not something I would normally like to do, but I hope what I said made some sense and was helpful and interesting. On that, do we have any questions?
Hi, Evan. Pretty good presentation. I always appreciate a lot and learn a lot with you. So this is a key point. The managers usually suffer a big transformation in an agile way of working. So it's a very big change in terms of mindset, and I fully agree with you regarding delegation outcomes, developing ownerships, the vision with common goals and so on, market agility strategy, and to develop the confidence with competence and empathy. This last one, I pretty appreciate. But it's very complicated to achieve this, right? Especially to create a high-performance team. Let's suppose you are starting with this transformation as an executive, as a manager. How can we start, in your point of view? Because to be a superhero at the beginning, it's so hard. Because you need to change many things. What are your suggestions for the people that is starting this kind of transformation? For the manager and for the team as well, okay? With a person that is starting.
So I'm going to give you 3 slightly different answers. Right? So the first answer is, it takes you many years to become a doctor. It takes you many years to become an engineer. Right? hell, to become a good carpenter takes many years, right? To develop the skills to be a good manager is also something that takes many years. This is an entire, it's a career, it's an entire new set of capabilities and skills that need to be developed. It's not something that a 2-day course is going to make you an expert leader, right? It might help you highlight, like, it might give you a space, it might help show what's possible, but it's not going to give you all the answers. So the first answer is, it's not a transformation in so much as from an individual standpoint, it is an entire career journey and of ongoing development. But that's not good enough. So I said I was going to give you 3 answers. So the next 2. Inside an organization, there are things that an organization can do. Right? An organization can actually invest in the management skills and management skill training. So the new managers, right? Don't just promote someone who is a really good developer and go, you're now a manager, done. Right? Promote that person, certainly, if they have the aptitude to be a good manager, a good leader as well, but then give them the training and the support that build the systems to enable them. But not just for new managers. You could be the CEO, and there's things that you can learn about management and leadership. So there has to be this investment in professional development and skills development and learning for managers at all levels across the organization. I've been in organizations where I will I have budget to send my developers on training to learn the latest whatever coding standards is or the next software programming language, but I don't have budget to send those same people, the ones who are just ready for that next level career, on training that isn't directly related to their job. They need more skills in time management. They need skills in communication and negotiation because they're not good at that. Right? So we need to have that investment. And the third answer, and I'll be quick, is one at the team level. And that's you. It doesn't matter who you are, right? It doesn't matter whether you're a manager or not. A culture of feedback is something that needs to be developed. You need to create a space for people to be able to say, I have some feedback for you. There's a way that we could do that better. And that goes up, right? So change your KPI. So you can actually change KPIs in the organization. You can create cultural patterns that enable this culture of feedback. And it is so important because as a manager, I learn more from the people who report to me than I do from anyone else. And if they don't feel comfortable teaching me or sharing with me, then I'm not going to learn from them.
Great, Evan. So we have just more 2 minutes to close the keynote, and we have many questions. But one in 2 minutes that I believe is very interesting is, could you please tell us what managers in agile organizations should not do? In 1 minute. In 1 minute.
1 minute. Deming, W. Edwards Deming says there's 2 mistakes a manager can make. Right? Interfering when everything is normal and being absent when something is not. Right? So as a manager, if everything is going fine, if everything is within tolerance, right? Step back, give your team the space to do what they need to do. Trust them, and do not interfere. Do not step in. Be available to them, but do not step in. But conversely, when things are going wrong, when you see something going outside of tolerance, something there's a mistake, there's something substantial that the team can't deal with themselves, because some mistakes are within tolerance, some mistakes are acceptable. that's when the manager has to step in. And if you do not step in at that point, then you are, well, not being a good manager. All right. So the trick is to know what your teams can do by themselves and what they can't, so as to when you engage and when you step back.
Okay, so Evan, thank you a lot. We have more 2 questions here. Can we answer by chat of Devin? Can we talk in parallel and chat? Okay, see you soon. Thank you very much for everybody that is participating here. We'll go to a break right now. See you. Thank you, Evan, again.
Thank you, everyone.
Safe.